It's a happy and blessed Wednesday morning. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning start on Channels Television. It's the Morning Brief, and we're live for you right here in Lagos, Channels Television's global headquarters. I am Bukola Koka, and of course, I'm here with Jeffrey. Hello, Jeffrey.
Morning, Bukola, and welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. As always, we binge through the big happenings, and there's a lot going on. You'll be spoiled for choice as to what interests you the most. Maybe how it affects you directly, or how it affects all of us as people in Nigeria, and perhaps our brothers and sisters outside the country. Whatever it is, we're here to make sure we break it down to the best of our ability with our team and give you the best of your mornings. Bukola, what is going on? What are you tracking?
Quite a lot is happening, Jeffrey. The president left the country as president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but he's now a knight of the Order of St. Lucia. I hope I got that title correctly. But you know, the president himself is magnanimous in, conferring our national honors to our bilateral partners or either our sectoral partners. Recall the order conferred upon businessman Bill Gates, and of course the Prime Minister of India also, got his own portion of a national honor when he visited the country not too long ago. So the president also has been blessed in similar manner with this particular order conferred on him in St. Lucia following his visit to St. Lucia. And of course, the president himself has also been magnanimous, giving out scholarships to students of St. Lucia to come in here and study in Nigerian universities. That draws quite a lot of reactions, which we, of course, trailed for you yesterday. And of course, Nigeria's ties, historical ties with St. Lucia has been highlighted during this particular trip. But are there other ties, with St. Lucia, knowing that it's emerging, following this trip, that also the president's longtime friend and ally, that would be His Excellency Sir Gilbert Chagri, has served as UNESCO permanent representative to St. Lucia, and of course has in fact helped to draw interest to St. Lucia over the years. We wonder whether, that compels this trip of Mr. President to St. Lucia. But of course, when we have an opportunity with the president, we'll be putting all of these questions through. And more importantly, there are other issues back home. The House of Representatives is drawing attention to security concerns in Niger State, where, according to reports in certain communities, bandits are said to be walking free. And so while generosity is being extended outside the country, some of those funding are required to tackle real issues back home in Nigeria. And not forgetting, politics is also, very dominant on the scene. But Jeffrey, before I get ahead of myself, what are you tracking?
No, you can go right ahead. There's a lot to track at the end of the day. But, well, I think we've said enough about St. Lucia. We've talked about the flurry of pressers released by the presidency concerning his visit to St. Lucia, justifying the reason he had to travel. And, well, the only flack, on the other hand, is to the fact that Nigerian students need to get loan to go to school, and these scholarships are offered. But there are so many underlying issues that we will get to find out when the president comes. I think he's headed, or he's already in Brazil for the BRICS meeting, and so that's going to be another conversation in its entirety, because I'm more concerned about what concerns you the most sometimes, which is the price of PMS.
Petrol, right?
Yeah, so we understand that the sector has been deregulated. Of course, PMS subsidy is gone. The president made that very clear, and he got a lot of backlash for that, but he stuck to his guns. So what we expect is to the effect that when the prices of crude oil, which is the most expensive component or the bigger share of the cost components of PMS price, if you look at how the pricing template is done, if it goes up, the price of crude oil goes up, we expect the price of PMS to actually go up. So we saw what happened. It went almost to $80 per barrel when the issue around Iran and Israel happened because of the Strait of Hormuz that carries a lot of this crude. 20% of the entire crude around in the world comes from that area. So we could see how it went down. Then the pump prices were adjusted upwards. Well, the price of crude oil has actually gone down and stayed steady, less than $70 so far. Have we seen any adjustment to the PMS at the pump price? So what is this deregulation really all about? Is it that when it goes up, it's easy to adjust your pump price, but when it comes down, the adjuster gets bad? I don't know what
Jeffrey,
to say.
My ship has since sailed on that particular one.
No, we need to
stop, bothering my head about it.
No, you're a journalist. You should bother yourself.
But it's important to also scrutinize what's happening in that space. Weeks ago, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Dangote refinery announced its decision to begin direct distribution of petroleum products.
Free of charge, by the way.
That drew the ire of marketers in the sector. And we know that prior to this time, there has been intense competition, a price war between our own state-owned oil company and Dangote refinery. So we wonder if this is also, this refusal to adjust petrol price downward is a product of the price competition that is ongoing between and amongst marketers. Some who are, doing business with the Nigerian state-owned oil company, NNPCL, and others who are doing business with Dangote petrol refinery. But we must continue to ask, what then is the benefit, of mass production, domestic production of petroleum products at home, when, if price goes down, we do not enjoy the benefits of price of crude oil, which is the international product that determines the price of petrol, if it doesn't come down at home. So what then is the benefit?
That's why I'm raising the question, because the last time I bought the PMS over 900. By now, we expect it to go in the middle of 800, say 845, 8, because we've seen when price of crude oil was about 67, 66, I think 64, it went down. So I'm talking about the speed of adjusting the prices. And that's on one hand. Perhaps the issue around Dangote buying about 4,000 CNG-empowered trucks to be able to offload, evacuate PMS from its petroleum product, let's put it that way. I don't know whether the distributors were not taking from him as much as he would, so he decided to take his own destiny into his own hands, right, and just keep all of these things in tanks. He decided to do it himself, and even took it to another level by saying, I'm going to send it to everywhere in the country because I want it to, the price to be close to maybe a uniform price, if it's possible, whether you're buying in Sokoto or you're buying in Lagos. Well, the players in that sector said this is one step into monopoly. But the game is the game. You do your best to compete as much as possible. But the other bigger question we should ask, let NNPCL, now I appreciate, first I want to appreciate Mr. Bayo, the new guy in charge, the new man in charge. He's tried his best to be as transparent as possible, giving us monthly updates. I haven't checked the last month. But every month, it gives us a report as to what was produced, how much was sold. It's just a basic dashboard for you to be able to say, this is how NNPC fared this month. That's a good thing. But let's talk about the Port Harcourt and the Warri refinery. I think it's about 2 or 3 months now, or going to more than 2 months. It hasn't been working.
Since the announcement that it will be shut down for repairs.
And those are the things people who understood this space were screaming that there's something really wrong, that this may have been a photo op and all of that. Now it looks like, well, it looks like they were right after all. So we want the management of the NNPCL and the people in charge of the refineries. What is going on with our refineries? $1.5 billion is not a joke for turnaround maintenance. We need to find out what's going on with those refineries ASAP.
And Jeffrey, just before we leave the petrol matter, I wonder, does the deregulation of the sector absolve, the superintending officers at the Ministry of Petroleum from explaining to Nigerians what exactly is happening with the, price of petrol when it goes up? When price of crude oil goes up, price of petrol goes up at home. But when price of crude oil goes down, we do not see the,
that question
reduction at home.
Is best answered by, I think, Mr. Farouk Megu is in charge of the NNDPRA. They are in charge of the downstream sector. Upstream is Kamalafe. So those are the people we should be asking questions. They should be the ones we should be asking questions. In fact, they should be the ones we should be asking, because they were there. They took them, showed us videos, showed us samples of Port Harcourt refinery and Warri refineries. Now everybody's mum. Anyway, okay, but Nigerians, that's our job, to keep them in check. So what is happening to the 2 refineries that we celebrated that has come on stream? 2 months down the line. What spoiled? What got bad? We need
We need some
exactitude.
explanations.
Yes, and I don't want to say I'm happy, but the communication, whoever is in charge of communication of the NMPCL needs to do better now than the previous one. They need to do better because communication was a big problem in the last management. Anyway, so that's the Port Harcourt refinery when it came on stream. But Bukola, what do we have for the people today?
Well, we're not exploring oil this morning.
Yeah, this affects all Nigerians, so we have to talk about
politics. So the plot to unseat President Tinubu in 2027 is gathering momentum, is thickening, as you would say, as political heavyweights like Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, former vice president and candidate of the PDP, presidential candidate in 2023 election, Uche Secondus, that's former national chairman of the PDP, former Senate President David Mark, and others held a closed-door meeting in Abuja. So we'll be speaking this morning with the media advisor to Mr. Atiku as we try to find out what this proposed opposition has in store ahead.
All right, that's all we'll be talking about. Local government elections. July the 12th is the date right here in Lagos. LASIEC is the Independent Electoral Commission that's in charge of Lagos local government elections. But certain parties that's outside the APC are raising concern about what the activity of LASIEC is. They are complaining as to the effect that they are not happy with the processes of what is going on with electoral management in Lagos State in terms of eligibility of candidate, the conduct of the electoral umpire itself, whether this election that will be coming up, we're going to look at it from the law, whether it even follows, it complies substantially with the Electoral Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So if you're interested in the local government elections in Lagos State, 20 local government areas, 37 LCDAs.
Yeah.
Oh, they are not recognized by law of Nigeria, by the way. So there's a lot that is going on. It's an important conversation because let what befell Rivers State not befall the elections that are coming up in Lagos. The guys who understand how it plays out and who are participants will be right here to have that conversation. I will be throwing the questions at them.
Absolutely. It sounds like a familiar tune, right? But we'll sing it all the same. That's not all. We'll be heading over as well this morning to Oyo State, where students of Polytechnic Ibadan protested outside the building against the proposed name change of the institution by the governor to in honor of former governor of the state, Omololu Olunloyo. The president of the school student union body and leader of the protest joins us this morning to shed more light on the grievances of the students. Sounds like deja vu, right? When we walk down a bit memory lane to recall at that time when the administration, I believe, of former President Goodluck Jonathan proposed a name change for good old University of Lagos here in the nation's commercial capital. And my, what a protest that was. Well, it sounds as if history is repeating itself in another shape and form this time, also in southwest Nigeria.
Right.
But there's yet another resistance. So we'll find out what the issues are. Is there a sense of history here, or is history not important? Let's have that conversation together on the program.
Absolutely. And just before we bring in our analysts on the program, let's tell you the question of the day. Our question of the day is, does the coalition have a chance to defeat Tinubu, President Tinubu, in 2027? Yes or no? Does the coalition have a chance to defeat Tinubu as a president in 2027? Is it a yes? Is it a no? Because they are coalescing, if you allow me to use that word right now. Okay, we'll come back in just a moment. Remember, don't forget. All our feedback channels is how you get across to us. We'll be back for the headlines, paper headlines, just in a moment. Stay with us.
Yes, indeed, it's a packed show for you this morning on the Morning Brief on Channels Television. And we're diving straight into the newspapers this morning. And our media analyst, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, joins us already. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
A very good morning to you and to all our viewers.
Yeah, good morning to you. You're looking dapper this morning, Mr. Akintobi.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
Yeah, I wonder which of you, we're spoiled for choice this morning as far as the papers are concerned. I wonder which one, resonates with you the most. But let's dive into the New Telegraph. Listen to this. Atiku, Mark, Secondus, others, why we're joining 2027 coalition. And we have some insights there. To meet ADC leaders, opposition politicians today. So the meetings are continuing. That's, that's what this tells us. Ask Nigerians to join in on seating Tinubu. Coalition, no threat to the APC, says Daluri. Of course, the ruling party is responding already. That's the acting national chairman of the APC following the resignation of Mr. Ganduje. So, Mr. Akintobi, what's it for you, this coalition?
There seems to be a groundswell of consensus that President Tinubu can be unseated. Usually at the end of a first tenure, going into a second term, there's usually a lukewarm attitude that this person is difficult to unseat. So you see the efforts are lackadaisical. There's no real major effort to try to unseat an incumbent because it's relatively difficult. But this time there seems to be almost a desperate drive, which makes me think President Tinubu should be worried, because if so many people are coming together under the notion that this man can be unseated, then that means they've taken the temperature of the populace and sense a disgruntlement, a dissatisfaction with the status quo, which is what begins to open the door to the possibility of change. So all these people coming together, coalition, trying to see how there's strength in numbers, especially when you start seeing players like Peter Obi, you see Atiku, David Mark, Bukola Saraki, you see them across the aisle from different political families, and you see them all trying to come together. It's because they smell blood in the water. They believe the president is beatable as long as the elements are aligned in the right directions. So they're all coming together to take advantage of that vulnerability, and they believe that by doing it together, they stand a chance. Of course, the problem then becomes personal ambition, it becomes issues of strange bedfellows all trying to come together, because even the election that unseated Goodluck Jonathan, for example, that was the first time in the history of Nigeria that a different party will defeat an incumbent. You didn't see this kind of groundswell of togetherness to believe that Goodluck was beatable, despite the fact that the APC itself was a coalition of sorts that came together for that specific purpose. But you didn't see the kind of desperation and momentum and sheer vivacity in the movement today back then, which lets me believe that there's a strong belief that the president can be defeated, probably based on the economy, insecurity, government expenditure, a lot of things that people are complaining about. There's poverty in the land, farmers can't go to farm. So many problems are plaguing us in the country, which make the president vulnerable.
But I wonder if, this bears the markings of 2013, when the parties were coming together, the ACNs of this world, Congress for Progressive Change, the NNPPs, ANPPs of this world were coming together at that time. So is this reminiscent of what happens when you, of course, consider the differing interpretations that this coalition is being given? They're saying that, no, this is not necessarily a convergence of political parties, but actors who are trying to form a political party. What's different, from between what happened then, 2013, and now?
Well, you see, the players today are very entrenched in their individual cocoons. And you see a person like Peter Obi, for example, saying that he's not in for a coalition to contest for power. He's in a coalition to rub minds about ideas. How do we improve the lot of Nigerians? How do we improve the economy? How do we battle insecurity? All those things that his coalition is to exchange ideas. So you look at it and you ask yourself that the way the APC came about in 2013, where it was a merger of various interests, is it possible? Can you see the fragments that are left of the PDP today? Can you see the Labour Party? Because they are all really entrenched in their own spaces. Can you see them all collapsing their structures into one unit the way the APC was successfully able to do? I think it's more treacherous waters to try to navigate, because I also think that each of them individually believe their power structures, their power centers, and to be able to now take a back seat to a larger unit. In other words, the individuals believe they are greater than the sum of the collective, and that's where the problem comes in. If the individuals thought that they were less than the powers of a collective, then there's a possibility of what happened in 2013. So I don't predict that happening.
Well, let's go to the Guardian newspaper. I'm even getting some news as to the resignation of one of the members of the coalition from the PDP. I don't want to call names until I make a final confirmation, but it's a big name that has resigned. I just they just sent it to me right now. Somebody really big in the PDP resigning his position, and is part of the coalition. So as soon as I get that clarity, we'll be able to tell you exactly who that individual is, as to whether or not he's indeed resigned from the People's Democrat. In fact, he's one of the people on the pages, on the front page of the Guardian. But I'll leave you I'll just keep you in suspense for a moment. Northern PDP leaders settle on ADC as preferred coalition platform. I'm sure you've spoken a lot about it, but this angle is to the fact that Northern leaders, so you can see, they are spread across Atiku Bubaka, David Mark, El Rufai. That should be the former speaker. Tambuwa,
former Sokoto governor.
Former Jigawa governor himself, Sule Lamido, and all of that. So what we're getting, according to the front pages of the Guardian newspaper, is like, this coalition is building a lot of steam. And if you look at that collective, Northeast, North Central, and Northwest, if you look at that collective, what does that say to you?
It says to me, first of all, that ADA didn't get registered by INEC. Because that was the preferred, ADA, yeah, ADA. That was the preferred vehicle. But INEC said that they didn't meet up to requirements, and as a result, they weren't going to be registered, at least not for now. So they had to shop around for a different vehicle. And now, because the drivers of this coalition are mostly all Northerners. Look at all the names we just mentioned now. Going from Atiku, David Mark, Tambuwal, Sule Lamido. All of them are Northern power brokers. So in shopping around for a party, it only comes naturally that they would pick a party that is more leaning in the direction of the North, which is why this ADC is coming into play, as opposed to, say, the SDP, which was one of those that were considered before. And why not even an existing vehicle from some of the coalition members, like LP or PDP? I suppose the view is that those two are already damaged goods to some extent, because they all have their loyalists, and the loyalists will adhere strictly to each of their sectors. So it's better to come with a fresh vehicle, a new name, a new face, even if it's an existing structure. Picking the ADC simply is because the ADC already exists, it's already registered, it already has offices in all 36 states. So it's easy to move into that and have a ready-made vehicle to contest for the elections, as opposed to trying to start from scratch.
Well, I wonder if because there are big interests involved, there are big egos in this room, this coalition room, and I wonder if those egos, will be able to make sacrifices such that the coalition can move forward. Do you see that as the single biggest stumbling block in this coalition going forward?
It is a stumbling block, probably not the biggest. One of the bigger concerns is a marriage of strange bedfellows. We've already seen that in the APC, that is causing rift. So, but the players, for one thing, if you look at an Atiku, he's already telegraphed several times the fact that he's not willing to subjugate his personal ambition to the will of the collective. First of all, look at how in 2023, for example, when based on the rotational presidency, after 8 years of a Buhari administration, it was unconscionable for a northerner to be put forward by any party based on the gentleman's agreement that's keeping us unified as a country, north and south. It was unconscionable. And people actually appealed to Atiku to step down his ambition and let a southerner be presented, which probably may have given Tinubu a bigger run for his money in terms of the competition, because there were some people who simply did not vote for the PDP based on the fact that we've had 8 years of northern rule. How can another northerner be coming to contest himself for the presidency? So Atiku refused, in spite of the fact that it may have cost the PDP the election. He refused to step down his ambition. So if he's already got that kind of an ego and got that kind of a sense that this is my birthright, this is something I've wanted to do all along, and I don't care whose ox is God, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to pursue this ambition. So how do I now see him at a time like this wanting to step down that ambition for the good of the whole when he didn't have a history of ever doing that in the past? So you look at the size of the egos of the people in the room, you look at their laurels and achievements, and you say, how many of them? It's like you asking a Peter Obi, for example, to come and be vice president to an Atiku in 2027. It's not going to happen. Peter Obi made such a strong showing and has become a national figure with a near cult following that he would never play second fiddle to. It would be silly of him to play second fiddle to anybody, not even an Atiku. And he declared just yesterday or day before that he's running for president in 2027, which already puts Atiku on the back foot. So question is, when you look at the size of the egos in the room, David Mark, Bukola Saraki, who himself has run for president before, you see a Sule Lamido, and you ask yourself, can they manage all those egos and subjugate their personal ambitions? You say, some people will say, well, Tinubu and Buhari managed it in 2013. There were big players then too, you know, who were part of that. How were they able to manage it to where, well, President Tinubu is a strategist, and you can see he played his cards very well. So he stepped back knowing that his time would come. Do any of those today have that kind of political sagacity to know that sometimes you take one step back to take 3 forward down the road?
Well, if Kanye were here, Kanye would say they need prayers.
Perhaps that's what they call him, the master of the long-term game. He's played the long-term game. He's always been,
played it well.
He wanted to be president, and it's quite inspiring to say you want to be president and you end up being president. So on that, he has to be respected for his sagacity. Absolutely. But what I was saying to the effect, I'm sure my producers will put it up, is like there's going to be a tsunami of resignation, and the direction may be headed to the ADC. We just got the information now that Senator David Mark has actually resigned from the People's Democratic Party to the action. Okay, his resignation did not say where he's going to, perhaps, but clearly he has left the People's Democratic Party. So maybe we'll put that up in just a moment just to show Nigerians. We don't know how many more of these resignations are coming. So for clarity, David Mark has been a member of the PDP
for the longest
all his life. In fact, he was at the vanguard of the issues around the issue of doctrine of necessity, 2-term Senate president. And you can go on and on. Even in his military days, he was one of those that was called the IBB boys. So it's been around the polity and the politics and the military, and now to see this happening, we don't know what is the next set of tsunamis that are, in fact, we don't want to let everything out, but this is what we have right now, David Mark. In fact, that letter is dated June the 27th, so like it's being archived somewhere for everyone to see. So perhaps today we're going to see many more. What does this mean? How does it make you, how do you interpret all of this? Looks like they found a new home in ADC. Well,
to tell you the truth, the PDP has been regressing for quite a while, and how you look at it and know that the death knell has been sounded for the PDP is because you look at like 2023 and a few years before that, that places that were die-hard PDP loyalists have been switching allegiance in recent times like a gale. It's like Jeff said, a tsunami. Can you ever imagine that Delta State would become PDP. If you look at even
Akwa
Ibom has become gone away from the PDP. The places that were hardcore PDP have been shifting. You look at even Imo, the way it came about, and Imo is APC, and so this had already telegraphed the fact that PDP was on the back foot. This was a party that boasted that it would rule for 60 years and didn't even rule for 20, but it became problematic for the PDP and has continued to be. And when you see a heavyweight like David Mark resign from the PDP, I think it started from the day President Obasanjo tore his PDP card and said, I'm no longer active in politics, and particularly I'm not identifying with this political structure anymore. Ever since then, in drips and drabs, you've seen mass movement away from the PDP, and now it's gaining a groundswell.
Let's go to other things that Nigerians are talking about. This is in the interest of politicians. You know, I was just processing it, Mr. Akintobi, because I just thought about it. I said, this is the same groundswell opposition to the People's Democratic Party before the 2015 election. And what were the issues? The APC built their campaign on the failures of the PDP, anti-corruption, fixing security, and revamping the economy. 8 years down the line of that administration that brought in, that kicked out the PDP, Goodluck Jonathan, how did it end? And now the president, 2 years now, trying to do what he can to put things together, getting flags and commendation, depending on where you're looking at. So right now, what we should be probing is to issues around alternative ideas and not just coalition of people trying to unseat. That's why they're busy calling themselves IDPs and all of that. But let's go to another daily. And this is News Direct. Nigerian News Direct, I should say. Why lawmakers must stop incessant summon of oil companies. That's according to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil. That's Heineken Lokbobiri, Senator Heineken Lokbobiri. Says many summons are necessary, discourages investment, orders NNPCL Limited to meet 2 million barrels per day target. If I want to add to that, Honorable Minister, the question of what happened to our refinery is not listed here. 2 million, anyway, let me leave you to talk.
Well, actually, our oil production is improving. We're at 1.7 million barrels a day now. We were at 1.4, I think, just about a year ago. So we've actually made significant progress, and the target is to hit 2 million barrels a day. What the Minister of State is complaining about is the legislative oversight function. I mean, the House of Representatives, the Senate, all of those who speak for us, who represent us, they have a right to, as part of their oversight function, to summon executives and stakeholders, especially of the oil industry, which is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. A good 90% of all government revenues come from this oil. And so whenever there are any questions about transparency, questions about corruption, Jeff just talked about $1.5 billion in turnaround maintenance for the 2 refineries, and up to today, we don't see anything happening with those refineries. So how is it out of place for the House of Representatives to summon oil company directors or management to come and explain themselves about any issues that are not clear to the House? I think that's just their job, and they're perfectly in order. What's the concern about the fact that it will discourage investors? Investors themselves know that there has to be oversight from somewhere, because, listen, even in a capitalist system, the most capitalist of all systems, you don't have complete laissez-faire whereby government hands off completely, especially on a national resource. Government has to have regulatory oversight on oil, and part of doing that is calling for hearings, summoning the players, and questioning them, and interrogating some of the things that may seem not to be transparent. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and you know, it's an important conversation to have, and we'll expand it in the coming days, because it's more important for us to have accountability in that sector, having the ministers respond to critical questions on, you know, price movement, you know, beyond telling us when things are good alone. But we must thank you very much, Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Mr. Akintobi is a media analyst who always comes through for us on the newspaper review segment. Thank you so much, sir.
Always a pleasure.
All right, take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment to bring you some things you're saying on the front pages of the social media. Maybe we'll get right straight to it, okay? just before we bring in our guests, that, okay, we saw this video about an ex-student of Yaba Tech, that's in Lagos. For those of you who don't know Yaba Tech, it's in somewhere in Yaba, as the name implies. Calling on Nigerians for help after he was denied entry into the school because of his hair. That's the report we're getting. He has, you understand, he has a business worth some millions of naira to run inside the campus, so he wasn't allowed in. Then let's take a listen to his complaint.
You are telling me that I must stay outside because of my inappropriate sex. You have trained me. It's not my right. And now I'm telling you that I need an S-type permit for you enter the campus. You are telling me, what are you telling me? Why am I not allowed to enter this campus? I must have a reason, a reasonable reason, a tangible one, because I need it. You think she calm down? What are you telling me? You need to calm down. You calm down. Still one side. So better not let train me. It will be my right to remain in school.
I'm trying to get a good look at the students here. There must be thousands of students, ex-student at Yaba Polytechnic. We understand he's an ex-student. I'm trying to, understand the inappropriateness of this particular hairstyle. We may require some more explanations from the authorities at Yaba Polytechnic to find out what is acceptable as far as a haircut is concerned for students or ex-students who have business inside the Polytechnic. But this is what transpired at Yaba Tech yesterday, and we're bringing it to your notice.
Well,
So,
I don't see anything wrong with his hair,
except
there's something we don't know. I don't see anything really wrong with his hair. Let's even say his hair is, I don't know what the rule book says in the school. Every school has their regulation. But he's an ex-student, so whatever is binding on students shouldn't be binding on him. Let's even assume that he's wearing dreads and all of that. But if he has a business concern within the campus that is also generating income from him and the campus, because he's going to pay a few things, maybe for space and rents and all of that, I don't think as an ex-student that should be a big deal. So perhaps we don't have a full picture. But this is like majoring on the minor. This should be the least of anybody's problem. Hairstyle, what, and maybe there are other persons who are even carrying, I don't want to use the word worse now, other hair that are a bit more, that are dramatic in that sense. So what is the business of hairstyle?
There must be something that we do not know.
Yes, there's something we do not know. As a matter of fact, it's a tertiary institution, for God's sake. This is not a secondary school. It's not a glorified secondary school. Except we have turned our tertiary institution to glorified secondary schools. What's your business as a school as to why whoever is wearing what hair and all of that? That is not the business of the school. But as I said, perhaps there are more details we need to have to provide clarity. So maybe Yaba Tech, I wouldn't know whether they've released any statement as the management of the school or not. But if it is this hair I'm looking at, and this is the reason he's denied entry into school, then I don't understand at all. It doesn't make any sense to me, not at all. But let's get to other ones as well before bringing our guest. President Tinubu, just to show you, just when it was being, yes, that's when, yes, that's our president's giving the highest honor. We've talked about, Bukola dwelt on this for a bit at the beginning of the program. So for those of you who missed it, our president is now a sir. So his name is now Asiwaju, Senator.
Amongst many other titles,
Senator Asiwaju Sir Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So in case you say we didn't get anything from St. Lucia, this scholarship and all the things he spoke about has at least gotten us a title, but that's just on the lighter side. Okay, we'll bring you more, but don't forget our question of the day. Does the coalition have a chance to unseat President Tinubu in 2027? It's a straight answer, yes and no. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, that coalition is a conversation we're having next. Join us again. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about the coalition in the works. Yesterday, there was a meeting among the people that are putting together this coalition. Atiku Bubaka, Senator David Mark. Atiku Bubaka is the former vice president of Nigeria. Senator David Mark as well. We have Nasser El-Rufai. We saw Uche Secondos, the former PDP national chairman. The list goes on. Sule Lamido as well. You know, the big guns in politics coming together across political lines to say they want to form a coalition and give APC a run for their money in 2027. Well, we have joining us special advisor to the former Vice President Atiku Bubaka Media. Mr. Paul Ibe joins us right now from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ibe, thank you for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Mr. Ibe, whilst I was here, I got the notice of Senator David Mark's resignation. I don't know whether you're aware of it. And in fact, I'm getting intel that there is going to be a tsunami of defection. In fact, some people are saying that movement is towards the ADC. What do you know? Because your principal is on the seat and you are familiar with this territory. Are we expecting any resignation from your principal? What exactly is going on? Are you aware of David Mark's resignation? Let's begin from the issue of movements before we talk about the coalition.
Well, it's early morning. You know, there is drizzle. It's drizzling here in Abuja, and I just got into the studio. I may not be aware of the resignation of His Excellency David Mark, but what I do know for a fact is that he had been, you know, penciled down as the interim, you know, national chairman, you know, of the agency.
So, from your principal's end, is there any? Because we've seen so many things. The vice presidential in succession. Peter Obi was a vice presidential candidate in 2019. He's left the party. Ifeanyi Okowa, former governor of Delta State, the vice presidential candidate to your principal, has also left the party. Is there any nuance to the effect that your principal may leave or is going to stick his guns to the PDP?
Well, let's wait and watch. If, you know, Nyesom Wike, the minister of the FCT, can be in the PDP and still be in bed, you know, with the APC, and we can be in PDP and still do coalition, which essentially is a response to the yearnings and aspirations, you know, of Nigeria. That is what they wanted. That is what they want. And indeed, we also did an internal poll. We did a polling which suggested that clearly, you know, to be able to reclaim and rebuild Nigeria, you know, leaders across political divides need to come together. They need to, you know, harmonize their strength, you know, because no matter how beautiful the policies that you have, the ideas that you have, if you don't, you know, you're not able to win an election, you can't be able to implement those policies and, you know, transform the lives of Nigerians.
And so some would say what happened this morning, the announcement of the resignation of former Senate President David Mark, is akin to the Yoruba proverb. I'm going to just say it in English just to save time. The witch died yesterday and the witch cried yesterday and the child died today. So that high point in the communique issued at the end of the coalition meeting that PDP members should embrace the coalition. Is it an invitation to exit the PDP and join the coalition? And are we bound to see more defections from this point?
Well, my sister, the reality is that Nigerians have been dying, and the witch didn't have to cry. And since the advent, you know, the Tinubu administration, Nigerians have been dying in their numbers. The state of insecurity is unprecedented. And look at what happened in Benue, for example. One night, 200 lives snuffed out. And, you know, the president says he was traveling there and he couldn't get to Yelewata because, according to him, you know, bad roads. But we're also aware of other individuals who were able to get there. The senior pastor of the Dunamis International Gospel Center was in Yelewata to condole with the people, you know, to share essentials, you know, to them. And here we have a president who is prioritizing, you know, travel, you know, traveling elsewhere charity, they say, begins at home. And if you cannot stop the killings of Nigeria, the least you could have done as the comforter-in-chief, is to go to the place where this tragedy took place and offer those people, a shoulder, to cry on. But he hasn't done that. And this clearly, is indicative, of the character, the signature of this administration, since it came into being, 2 years ago.
Okay, so let's talk about rebuilding Nigeria now. This association of coalition, there are many Nigerians who would ask, why should we trust these politicians that have come together? Some describe them as an association of failed politicians. In fact, Mr. President describes them as political IDPs. So why should we accept this as an association of politicians who have the interests of Nigerians at heart rather than looking for a vehicle to further their own interests?
Well, it is very unfortunate that this president will prioritize politics over governance. For him, since the end of the election, President Bola Tinubu is the commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and not of the APC. And so when he stands, on that platform as a president, he needs to be very careful what he says and how he says it. For example, sweep them, talking about the opposition party. Any society, any democracy that does not have, opposition, it's not a democracy, because there must be choices, to be made. But here we have a president who wants to railroad everybody into the same APC, platform, and, saying things like sweep them. Why can't he, the same energy that he's spending on sweeping the opposition party, on trying to decimate and to destroy them, why can't the same energy be deployed in sweeping, the state of insecurity, in sweeping banditry, in the north, in sweeping, the people who are, involved in the killings, in Benue State, in Plateau, in Zamfara, and elsewhere. And so, I thought it was time for governance. I thought this president was going to be focused on making life meaningful, on ensuring that Nigeria, gets away from being the malnourished capital, of the world, adding to the already, capital of poverty. But here we have a president who is weaponizing poverty, ensuring that there is divide and rule, and ensuring that all, the instruments of states, including the, anti-corruption agencies, are being used to hound and to, to ensure that, leaders, who have questionable characters, who have, who have issues to answer in terms of corruption, are told to go and say no more by getting into the APC. So this is what we've been having, and I think it's, unfortunate.
All right, Mr. Ibe, let's talk about the angle that the coalition, because right now what we're hearing more is the politics, and of course, everybody who follows politics knows that you have to win an election to execute your own ideas. So it starts with rallying to see how you can unseat the person who is there. But for those of us who are citizens and Nigerians, we want to know what alternative ideas there are they are bringing to the table, which has not really been the bigger conversation, apart from blaming the government on some of its failures. But the reason I say that is because it's the same thing that happened in 2013, 2014, that led to the election in 2015 and to the unseating of President Goodluck Jonathan then. As I said at the beginning, the APC built its campaign and promises to Nigerians based on what they considered to be the failure of the PDP. First, they felt, and they said the PDP was very corrupt, that government was truly corrupt. That's how they put it, and you can see what happened during that period. They also talked about the issue of insecurity, relating issues around Chibok girls who are still in captivity, by the way, a lot of them. And then the issue around revamping the economy. Now, 10 years down the line, I don't think any of these have been solved. As a matter of fact, They said the fundamentals are looking in the right direction, but the compounding effect, as we always say, hasn't reached the average citizen. So it looks like we're still where we were in terms of the same set of complaints we have. Another set of politicians have now come to say that same thing you talked about in 2015, that they say they couldn't fix, they have not been able to fix, we can fix it. Why do you think we're going back and forth on the same issue, and what are the alternatives here?
No, we are not. I think the media is also failing in its responsibility. Are you going to hold us responsible for the state of affairs in the country? You should be interrogating, this administration and previous administrations. You spoke about the last 10 years. Atiku Abubakar has not been in government. Peter Obi has not been in government. They have been trying to get in government to have an opportunity. You are aware, of the policies of His Excellency, Peter Obi, about prioritizing productivity over consumption. You are aware of the free market, economy, as espoused by His Excellency Atiku Abubakar. You are aware of, his policy prescriptions. They are available, there. And I think it's still early days because we have a coalition and they're probably trying to, since they're harmonizing their strengths, they will also be harmonizing policies. So it's still early days. But clearly, we know, we know the direction, of these individuals, who are the key leaders, in the coalition and the kind of policies, that they will have in place. And so let us, interrogate, what, Tinubu, in his administration has gone on. That is the important thing, that we have not been talking about, the people that are still here to settle down. They are coming together. Yes, they have adopted, David Mark as the interim national chairman, as the, reports, are suggesting, this morning. But a lot of energy should be focused on interrogating, what is going wrong, and it's simply, the fact that, these guys don't have the competence. They don't have the set skills to be able to do what they have said, they said that they're going to do. And that is why we continue to have, the problems, that we're having. That is why, Nigerians can barely afford to feed. I mean, the fact that, people cannot buy, basic things, milk, egg, the real basic bread and all of that. That is why Nigeria has become the malnourished, capital of the world. It has never been this bad, my brother. I mean, let's focus
Mr. Yaba, if I may,
interrogating, this. I'm not holding those who are not in government responsible for the state of play.
Mr. Yaba, that's also the responsibility of the opposition. We're doing our job, which is why we hear from all sides. The opposition is supposed to be there to also say, this is the wrong direction and these are the alternatives. So all of us are doing our job. The opposition has to do their work. So you can't blame the media for asking the questions, because if you are saying you have a better idea than the people that are serving, we want to know what those ideas are. So for instance, you mentioned there's going to be a free market economy. This government has also liberalized trade in that sense. They've removed subsidy from like 3 things. Partly electricity, PMS, they've stopped defending the Naira, removing that subsidy. And where they are coming from, according to them, is to the effect that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we're supposed to, so the compounding effect has not come in yet. So that's why I'm asking, if the liberal policy is what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is bringing to the table, wouldn't we have been in this same position of get worse before it gets better? That's my question.
Is it getting worse, for those of them in government? Is it getting worse for them? Of course it is not. You cannot ask people to make sacrifices when you're living like an emperor. That is why, for example, it's 3.7 billion naira per kilometer, according to Business Day, Nigerian, reports. Ours are the costless roads, being built in Africa, of any country. 3.7 billion. That suggests there's a lot of pork. There's a lot of, these contracts have been padded. So the same thing is, is still going on. You want them, to look at the FCT, for example. You're building roads, very good. You're renovating the International Conference Center, very good. And on the other hand, the staff are protesting. They have not been paid. The schools in the FCT are shut down. And so how does all of this infrastructure development that you make, how does it translate into positive? How does it affect the economy? When the civil servants, who are supposed to be the drivers, of all of these, laudable things, their welfare is not being prioritized. The schools that their children are supposed to go have been shut down. Probably they will not even be able to write, either the junior WAEC or even the, the WAEC, exam itself. So what are we talking about? I mean, there is a bit of a contradiction, in all of this. The leadership, the people in government, are getting fat, on our resources, and we are being asked to make sacrifices that is going to be worse before it gets better. No. The primary reason why any government is in power is for the welfare, the security and the welfare of the people. And I mean, those two things they have done abysmally low, as far as security, the welfare of the people. Nigerians are only surviving only by the mercies and the grace of God.
I was hoping that you would answer my initial question directly, Mr. Abe, about, the credentials of those who have formed this coalition. But I didn't quite get it, but I'll ask it in a more direct way, but with specifics as it has to do with your own principle at this time around. First of all, please confirm to us if indeed he's going to be the primary figure, if you like, the adopted presidential candidate or aspirant for the ADC. And as you do that also, the concerns around the need for a southern candidate to complete this next leg of additional four-year tenure as a balance of power in the polity. And in that mix as well, some say that his refusal to allow the PDP field a southern presidential candidate is responsible for what is happening in the PDP today. So how is that going to affect, the coalition and the need for the coalition to agree on a direction for 2027?
You guys are not helping. You're not helping. You're simply, inadvertently, without knowing it, you're also playing the, the card, of the ruling party. I mean, the media is tagging it Atiku coalition. It is not Atiku coalition. This is the coalition of opposition parties who are recognized, the challenge, what happened in 2023. That was a divide and rule. And they were, divided so that, Tinubu had his way. They have realized their mistakes. And they are trying to harmonize their strengths by coming together. So it's not an Atiku coalition, it's the coalition of the opposition parties. And we can't be putting the cart before the horse. The coalition is we just woke up, to learn that they have adopted, the ADC, they have an interim national, chairman, and they're going to take it from there. And we can't sit here and begin to talk about who is going to be, the presidential candidate, whether it's going to be the North or whether the South. No, sir. Why are we where we are today? Why we are here, where we are today, is that because we have prioritized, ethnicity and religion, over and above competence. The preoccupation of the coalition right now is to ensure that structures are put in place, to ensure that they organize themselves and prepare the party for a national convention that will throw up, leadership that will run the affairs, of the coalition platform. That is a priority for now. And to be able to begin to, put together their policies, like I said, Atiku Abubakar has policy prescriptions, His Excellency Peter Obi has policy prescriptions and all of that. So they will set up teams that will put all of that together. And I don't think this is the time to be talking about North and South or East or West. How does that affect the price of bread and of milk and of egg? How has it helped us? How has the Muslim ticket helped us? At this particular point in time, speaking about the Tinubu administration, how has South versus North? No, these are distractions. These are distractions. What should be focused on, right now, is being able to have a leadership a leadership that will, that will mobilize Nigerians for development. A leadership that would, be able to, a leadership that is, that is creative and forward-looking, and not one that is stuck, in the old ways of, of doing things. Those are not the things that we should be talking about now. And yes, talking about His Excellency Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar comes, into the platform, I mean, with very formidable, resume. A Democrat by excellence. We know the role that he played, during the military dictatorship that led, to the seizure of Intel's, his company, how, he nearly lost his life and the lives of his family, his son, and his children. We know all of that. Atiku Abubakar and other leaders are also once again being called upon to redeem Nigeria. Because what we are having right now is a civilian dictatorship. What we had then, 1996, and the rest of them, that quarter, was a military dictatorship. And these people are probably wearing agbada and suit and all of that, but they are no different from what had was, even worse than the military dictatorship. Yes, and you would know that, this coalition will stand to benefit from all of the experiences that it has, that it has over the, over the years. So they are not focused on who will be, the presidential candidate and all of that. No, that's not their priority right now. And let us help them. And so, except we are happy with the state of things. Except we are saying that your thanks, O Israel. I mean, let us all, leave it. And we will have a country at the end of the day. I mean, it's looking more like Sudan and Somalia, the way that I'm seeing it. You cannot secure the, the country. You can't secure the lives of people. You can't provide for the people. And so, why should you be in government? And why? So, if Nigerians are yearning for a change, and a change that they will get. Thank you.
And so for those who say your principal threw the PDP into a political crisis after the 2023 presidential election, and he was unable, and since been unable to manage it, and hence there's a big question mark on his leadership ability. How do you defend your principal?
No, ma'am. Atiku Abubakar did not run PDP into a crisis. And let me say it, for the umpteenth time, there's nothing wrong for a leader to present himself for consideration to run the country. Absolutely nothing wrong. And even if he has to do that a dozen times, there is nothing wrong in that. What is wrong is for a leader, someone to present himself, for leadership, is considered, given the opportunity, and is unable to do that job. That is what is wrong. We all know the history of, the last, 2023 election and the rest of it. I mean, it's still playing out. We know of a gentleman called Nyesom Wike, then governor of Rivers State, how he lost out, in an open, competitive primary. The openness was prescribed by his ally, former governor Otom, of Benue State. He lost. On the platform at the national stadium, at the Velodrome, where that election took place, he did say, when he was speaking to the delegates, that he will work with anybody who emerges, as the candidate of the PDP then. He was hoping that it was going to be him. Unfortunately, it was not. Atiku Abubakar emerged as a candidate, and Nyesom Wike went to work, working against his party. And he's still in bed, working with the APC to decimate, to destroy the PDP. And you're holding Atiku Abubakar responsible for the rot and the damage that has been done by a minister of this, of this administration who is supposed to be a member of the PDP, who is working in cahoots with the APC, and some other leaders of the, Atiku Abubakar has been in the background trying to resolve some of these crises. But it is like, the fowl. You see a chicken and, as you're trying to sweep, what it does is to keep, scattering what you have swept. That's what Wike has been doing for the last, 2 years. And I think it is wrong for anybody, especially the media, looking to, trying to, scapegoat, Atiku Abubakar as the one responsible. He was never responsible. Still not responsible for the crisis in the party.
Ms.
He only
Ebe,
presented himself for consideration.
Yeah, Ms. Ebe, we're totally
He
out
was
of time.
accepted as a candidate. We lost the election, and Wike is still trying to continue with the same template of 2023.
Yeah, Ms. Ebe, thank you for coming on the program. Nobody's blaming anyone. We're just asking questions that resonates with people. So it's not the media looking for a scapegoat. The issues are there for everybody to see. So we're highlighting all of the issues as they come. Mr. Polybe, it's a pleasure having you on the program. And Mr. Polybe is the Special Advisor Media to the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, there are two more issues we'll be discussing. First on the menu will be the protest that ensued at Polytechnic Ibadan, where they say, no, we do not want Polytechnic to be named after a former governor of the state, and they staged a big protest yesterday or so. Well, the Commissioner of Information from the states, your state, will be joining us, and we hope that the SUG president as well will come on at some point on the program after we speak with the commissioner. Join us again. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. And so from politics, let's check with happenings in Oyo State. Of course, reports came through yesterday that angry students protested the decision of the state government to rename their institution, that's Ibadan Polytechnic, to Victor Omololu Olunloyo Polytechnic. So let's understand, what the nature of engagements between and amongst the students and the state government looks like now. Joining us to help us with that is the Commissioner for Information in Oyo State, Prince Dotun Oyelade. He joins us virtually from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program.
I'm so pleased to be here.
And
thank you very much for having me.
And we're glad to have you. Please confirm to us, sir, is that institution, as we speak now, the Victor Omololu Olunloyo Polytechnic, or the plan to rename it is what has drawn the ire of the institution, the students of the institution? Can you hear me, sir?
Quite honestly, we do not see any reason in the
Go ahead, sir.
war. Right? I said quite honestly, Oyo State government does not see any reason in the world why.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, we may have to return to you in a bit. We must pause this now because we're having challenges with the connection, the internet connection through to you. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, hopefully that would have been resolved, and then we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. So let's return to Oyo State now as we review happenings from yesterday when students of Ibadan Polytechnic protested against the renaming of their institution by the Seyi Makinde administration. And we've had the Commissioner for Information, Prince Dotun Oyelade, who's still with us. We hope that the connection has been sorted now. So, Prince Oyelade, please continue with your clarification. You were trying to talk to us about the protest by the students yesterday. Go ahead, sir.
Very well. I told you that the state government does not see any reason in the world why there should be a protest as a result of the renaming of the Yaba Polytechnic to the Dr. Omololu Olunloyo. The question we should ask ourselves is this: if not him, who? If not now, when? Okay? There have been not less than between 17 and 23 different institutions across the country that have had their institutions renamed. There is nothing wrong with what the state government did with the renaming of the Yaba Polytechnic with Dr. Omololu Olunloyo, who is an icon by all conceivable standards in academics, in politics, and in the academia. Don't forget, this was the same gentleman who, at the age of 35 in 1970, was appointed as the first rector of this institution. So we believe that the protestation is rather miscarried and misplaced. We stand by that decision because it is a worthy decision for a worthy son of Oyo State. We respect our students a lot. We defer to them. And as the deputy governor said yesterday, we will do anything, bend over backwards to please them. But we will be fair and we will be tough. This time around, we are sticking by our decision.
All right. The visitor of the school, which is probably the governor, the president in this sense, this is not the first time we're seeing things like this. What is the, I wish the SUG president was here so that we can get in clear terms, but I'm sure you've been speaking as government to the student body as well as the school authority as to why they are resisting this move vehemently to the point where academic activities have been grounded to a halt. This is not the first time. President Goodluck Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan tried it with University of Lagos, naming it after who's considered the hero of democracy, MK Abiola. And the people in University of Lagos resisted it until they won. And till today, still the University of Lagos. So what are the reasons, besides the fact that the governor has authority to rename and all of the reasons you've espoused are to the credentials of the elder statesman who has died, but the students are saying no. Why do you think they're saying no?
It's because of lack of knowledge, and this is with due deference to their faculty, by the way. They are very brilliant people, but it is because of lack of knowledge of the worth of the man who just died. If the university, if there was protestation when former President Jonathan named the University of Lagos after someone else, and the protestation stopped, was successful, it's only an aberration. If you look at the horizon called Nigeria, there have been, as I said, not well over 20 institutions that have been renamed, and that decision by government stuck. This one will stick too, because we are talking to our students. They need to know who the icon is. Well, I asked the question that if not now, if not him, Dr. Omololu Olunloyo, then who? The first rector. If not now, then when? The man just died, and we believe, after due consultation, that it is one of the best things to do for him. And who has taken that decision? It is for our students to hear what their parents are saying now, because they are in an exam period. They should go do the needful and let their representatives continue to meet with government. But to us, we have done the needful, and we believe that our decision in renaming that polytechnic, that Dr. Molulu, our decision is just and correct.
All right, it appears as if it's a final decision from where the Oyo State government stands. We're just wondering, you know, since students have a sentimental attachment to the traditional name of their institution, we're wondering if they were carried along in this decision before it was made. But we're going to be interacting with the Students' Union government from Oyo Polytechnic much later on. But just before you go, sir, would like to expand the conversation a bit further to other happenings in Oyo State. The government is renovating the government house, according to reports, with about 63.5 billion naira. And the budget for your state government for 2025 is 678 plus billion naira. So that sum for renovation, not construction from ground up, is nearly 1% of the 2025 budget of the state. My mathematics is not too good, but I hope I'm correct in that regard. So some would say this is an overpriced sum for just a renovation work. How much was allocated to other sectors that are more important, like education, like health?
Let me start by correcting the impression you've had. And the word renovation, which you used, is a carryover of the propaganda that is abroad concerning this particular project. I issued a press release immediately after our last Executive Council meeting. It was a 21-paragraph press release, and not once did I mention the word renovation. What the state government is planning to do is to overhaul and to reconstruct the Oyo State government house, which has been there since the days of John Rankin. I'm talking about well over 50 years ago, as you can see, 70 years ago, as a matter of fact. So we have 21 different facilities, constructions that will be affected by the project. 21 different. We have the banquet hall, which is going to be overhauled altogether. We have the government, the governor's residence itself, which is leaking, you know, and is decrepit. So we have all these things. We are going to install a helipad there. If you look at what the costs of the naira is to the dollar, it's a tribe. And it's for anybody to see without mischief that spending that money is worthy of a legacy of the government house, Agudi, that's been there and far older than many other of such ills across Nigeria. Okay? So we are spending the money correctly. And you mentioned education, agriculture, infrastructure. Hardly can any other state in Nigeria beat us when it comes to all this. I mean, a state that has constructed well over 350 kilometers of roads, cutting across the 7 zones of the state. A state that is reconstructing the Samuel Ladoke Akintola International Airport with billions of naira, a state that is affecting the students at the secondary school and at the tertiary institutions level.
Honorable Commissioner.
And we have done our own work. What we are going to do concerning the construction, the reconstruction and overhauling of the government house is foolproof. And we know where to get the money from. No other infrastructure, no other projects in Oyo State is suffering as a result of our decision to do this.
All right. Overhaul, renovation, there seems to be, just a matter of semantics here, Honorable Commissioner. Some would say inside that 63 billion naira, you could get maybe 10 primary healthcare centers from that sum alone. But clearly it's an ongoing conversation. And the amount allocated has need for more scrutiny. We'll have to have this conversation much later on the program. And we're sure to invite you yet again. We must thank you at this point for your time on the program. We've been talking with the Honorable Commissioner for Information in Oyo State, Prince Dotun Oyelade. Thank you very much, sir, for your time on the program. And from here, we'll touch on Lagos politics. What exactly is happening with the local government elections as far as the opposition parties are concerned? We'll be looking at their perspective after this time out. Join us again.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about Lagos State's Independent Electoral Commission and the elections that are coming up on the 12th of July, which will be taking place in 20 local government areas and 37 LCDAs in Lagos. So altogether, you can put the number 57 of them. But there are issues that have been raised by the persons concerned as far as that election is concerned, and some of the gentlemen are right here with me. Before we get to what you're seeing on your screen, let me introduce my guest on the program. Ayodele Adio is the chairmanship candidate for Etiosa local government area. He is of the Youth Party. Thank you so much, Adio, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
I also have Mr. Michael Alasoji, is the DG, State Campaign Council of African Action Congress, AAC, Lagos State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's get back to that. What you saw in just a moment as far as the laws concerning local government conduct is concerned. So let's get to the first one, which is our agronom. You can see part 2, paragraph 1112 of the second schedule. It talks about the powers of the National Assembly to make laws concerning local government and every other election, yeah, which will give birth to the Electoral Act 2022. But you can see the second part, section, that's the 12th part of it, the 12th paragraph in the schedule, noting that in paragraph, that therefore shall preclude a House of Assembly from making laws with respect to election to a local government in addition to. But the underlying one on the ones in red, but not inconsistent with any law made by the National Assembly. So that 12th paragraph empowers the states to make laws concerning local government elections, but it has to be consistent with the Electoral Act. So let's get to the next one, which has to do with what the Electoral Act actually says. So if you're conducting a local government election in any part of Nigeria, these are the guidelines according to Electoral Act. You will send a notice not later than 360 days and publish that notice. There are specificities in terms of the state, the date of the election. So I just want to run through. So this is about the notice of election, 360 days, and you publish it exact day that election will take place. So if we get to the next slide, if we get to the next one, if my guys can be running with me. Oh dear. Okay, section 9. This is where it gets tricky as to the register, voter registration. If you see the section 9 subsection 6 says the registration of voters updated and provision or revision of the register of voters under this section shall stop not later than 90 days before any election covered by this act. If we go to the next one, which is the final one before I bring in my guest and ask the question. So see what the Electoral Act says about procedure for conduct of council polls, whether it's in the FCT or every other local government. It says you must obey the very constitution we read in that paragraph 11 of part 2 of the second schedule because it must have same and equal force. The next one, which is where we're going to finally on this. Any election to a local government area that is conducted by a state commission in violation of subsection 1 shall be invalid. That's referring to the Constitution. And any official that carries out that election commits an offense and shall be subject to prosecution. So if we go to what LASEC published, if we go to the LASEC slide and see what they published as to notice of election and all of that, which is what is causing the controversy, and that's why I brought in this gentleman, Mr. Ayodele Adio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
So I needed to do this as a reference to how local government elections, what the laws guiding the local government, conduct of local government elections are concerned, both in our constitution and in the electoral acts. Notice, registration, compliance, the limit of the House of Assembly not to overreach itself, and all of that. So what exactly is the problem with what you guys are complaining about?
But it just looks like you have done the work and we should just pack our bags and go home.
No, I'm just reading the law.
You have done the work. Listen, let me take you through the chronology of the events so that you get a sense of the illegality of what the current local government election is in Lagos State. A notice of election was put out on April 12th, right, for the elections to be conducted, on July 12th. So that gives you 3 months, which is essentially 90 days. If you calculate it, it gives you 92 days. By that singular action, you are in violation of Section 150, which clearly stipulates that the procedure for elections for local government must be inconsistent with that of area councils, like you rightfully read. And specifically in 103 of that section, it says that elections will not be conducted not earlier than 150 days to the date of expiration of the tenure of the current occupants of the office, right? And the reason behind that is such that you give a 60 days notice, because like you also read, voter registration is supposed to end 90 days before an election. So you have at least 60 days before that time to conduct whatever voter registration and get the voters register, to the local government. So clearly they are in violation of that. Not just are they in violation of that, there was a Supreme Court decision in Rivers State, which we all know, the basis upon which the Rivers State local government election was cancelled and a rerun ordered, was basically because the Rivers State Electoral Commission violated this very section of the Constitution, and the APC in Rivers State took them up to the Supreme Court and won. And in the pronouncement of that Supreme Court, the Supreme Court also made the continuous voters registration also mandatory in local government elections. And to that extent, that 150 days as prescribed by the Constitution also becomes mandatory for local government election. So explain to me how a commission headed by a retired judge will flagrantly disregard the basic tenet of the Constitution in terms of notice of election, especially again when there was a recent Supreme Court decision that completely annulled an election based on the violation of that particular section. To even make it worse, not only was a notice issued on April 12th, the guidelines of the election did not come until 3 weeks after a notice of election. So you gave a notice for an election, you waited 3 weeks later before you issued the guidelines of an election that was there. But even the worst part of it all is that the law upon which this election is supposed to be governed has been a matter of secrecy, because we were told on the day we had a parley with LASEC, we were told that the amended law, local government law in Lagos, was passed in January. Apparently, that was a barefaced lie, because clearly that law was passed in May. And if you followed events, 2 days ago, the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly summoned the Attorney General of Lagos to ask why the law that was assented to by the governor in May has not been operative, because the Attorney General and the Solicitor General is arguing that that law will not take effect until August. So, my dear panelists, I think it's worth asking, what law is currently governing the local government elections that we are currently running? Because clearly, if the State Attorney General is saying that that law does not take effect until August, we are completely amiss as to what law is governing this current election.
2008 or so. So
it's a problem.
Let's come to you. What do you make of this, and why are you so? Let's accept without conceding that there's illegality, because we're going to get LASIEC to come and speak for themselves as well.
Definitely.
We had to bring out the Constitution and the Electoral Act to show Nigerians how elections are to be conducted properly. And from what he said, it clearly shows that there are certain things that need fixing. But why are you participating in an election where you feel that it looks like they're not following the law?
Definitely. This Lagos state belongs to each and every one of us. And we will not leave the state into the hands of those that have been destroying it to date. So it is our responsibility, our constitutional responsibility, to also participate in that local government election. And the political consciousness of our people, of Lagosians, are increasing day by day. So we must not abandon the local government election, the third tier of government, into the hands of those that have been destroying it till date. Prior before the notification of the timetable of the local government election, there was an agreement, there was a meeting between LASIEC and IPAC regarding the direction of this election. There was not a comprehensive agreement between the IPAC and LASIEC before LASIEC pushed out the timetable and notification for local government election. So even most of the political parties within the Lagos state were even surprised seeing timetable flowing around everywhere. Secondly, in an election we are going to, we are 11 or 12 days towards the election. This really shows that LASIEC is not really prepared and ready for this election. If they could still be having deficiencies and ineffective in the administrative process, how will you call political parties for a verification and validation of a document, and on that same day, you are now bringing out guidelines, telling candidates, telling political parties, these are the documents expected from you. You send a notification to each political party 2 days towards validation and verification of credentials. Now candidates and political parties leaders getting to the venue, you are now bringing out guidelines, pasting it on the walls. And you are telling candidates, okay, you have to bring 10 voters card for 10 sponsors, photocopies for voters card. Documents which candidates or political parties are not aware. It was not even specified in the letter of invitation sent to each political party. And with this, we are aware and we know their plans as political party. They've hijacked this state before now, and we will not continue to open our eyes and allow them to continue to take over and continue to destroy the state. That is why we have to participate in this election and see the consciousness, the political consciousness of our people, of Lagosians, is increasing day by day. It's high time we take Lagos back from those that are mismanaging the state.
Yeah, I think at this point, Jeffrey's question is important. Why would you want to participate in an election that is already skewed against you?
Well, I think there are two things involved when you say, which is an important question that you asked, because sometimes from experience, we have gathered that when you go to court to challenge the legitimacy of certain elections, the court sometimes will ask, what your local standing is, what your grievances are, and if you had not participated in the process, how can you justify whether or not you were excluded or whether the process was fraudulent? And that's why sometimes you will need to participate in that process so that you can also collect evidences, of the malpractices, of, the flagrant disregard of the Constitution and processes of the elections, so that they can be admissible when you eventually go to court to challenge the legitimacy of that election. And it's also important, I think he also raised an important point, which is that if you completely also allow a space wherein you feed into the consciousness of the people that only APC participates in local government elections, what you then do is to completely cede that space, to that political party, and then people will automatically assume that there aren't any other political parties in existence, and so maybe they should just pitch their tent with this, political party. So that's why it's important, not just because we must consistently put a front of a credible alternative. It's also important to be a part of the process so that when you go to challenge legitimacy in court, you have grounds for challenging, those malpractices and those illegality, when you get to court.
And so we've seen that the opposition parties have not been silent about this. In fact, there was a video that went viral 2 days ago where party candidates and their supporters were chanting slogans right there in front of LASIEC office. So what is LASIEC saying about the grievances that you've presented, your disaffection about this process?
Till date, or till now, we've not had any progressive response from them than only being defensive. How will you call 2 or 3 political parties for verification and validation of documents, and you have only 5 staff on seat, and candidates are on seat from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. How many minutes does it take to verify documents and validate documents? But we know their intention. There is an indirect way of disenfranchising other political parties. It's an indirect way of frustrating other political parties, so that most candidates, most political parties will feel frustrated before the election, and they cannot catch them or knock them out of the election. So from last year, they know what they are doing. And we are using this medium to tell them to sit tight, and the whole Lagosians are watching them. And this time around, it's not going to be business as usual.
So what's the way forward now? And again, even the question of the LCDA, the LCDA is not recognized in the Nigerian Constitution. It's a Lagos thing. What Nigerian Constitution recognizes 20. So why are they conducting LCDA election with local government elections? Is there a reason for that? And are you guys participating? But more importantly, in answering that as we close, what's the way forward?
Well, the way forward is that we are going to challenge every of these processes in court. I can say for a fact that, we began a process in court yesterday. We have a hearing on the 17th of July. And we're going to challenge every of this illegality in court. And I can guarantee you that many of these things will not stand at the end of the day. Because you cannot, brazenly and flagrantly, consistently disregard several positions or provisions of the Electoral Act, the Constitution, and even common sense in conducting elections into local government offices and expect that those elections, will stand. And it's even worrying, and I'm saying this, it's even worrying that this commission is headed by a retired judge who typically, once you see that, is supposed to inspire a lot of confidence that at the very least, this person will follow the rule of law, in the guidance of this election. But it's sad that we're where we are today, that every single process, including even the polling guide, which was just released sometime last week, for an election that is next week, Saturday. So how are political parties supposed to even know where the polling units are located? And as I speak to you, if you see some of the definition of those polling units located, very fictitious. You can't even trace those polling units. Some of them are located in palaces. Some of them are located in places where you cannot access. I mean, it's a complete charade. They don't even...
Is it not INEC that provides polling units?
Exactly. So that's even assuming without conceding that they even had the powers to create polling units. You are releasing polling guide 2 weeks or 3 weeks to an election. But fundamentally, you don't even have the powers to delineate polling units.
We know
it's the exclusive purview of INEC.
INEC has the powers to rule, not the State Electoral Commission, because you draw powers from INEC for everything you do. that means it's an ongoing conversation. I think, okay, that was you guys.
Yes.
So, but the APC candidates are not complaining about this. So,
of course.
Because they are part of the system and they are,
okay.
they are okay
had
with
their
it.
own fair share
Yes,
of
sir.
challenges.
Their own was the
The
primaries.
position of candidates during the primaries.
Well,
Yeah, so that's an internal matter.
issue. So, anyway, what happens is we're going to be fair to everybody. So this is an open invitation to LASIAC to come and answer these questions about the rule of law and how elections are conducted in Lagos State, from notices to registration to polling units
LCDA.
to LCDAs
eligibility
eligibility requirements. There are so many layers that this may end up like River State, and nobody wants that to happen in the nation's commercial nerve center. So it's important that LASIAC comes. So this is an open invitation to LASIAC. Ayodele Adio is the chairmanship candidate for Etiosa local government area. Your one is not LCDA.
No, it's not.
From the Youth Party. Mr. Michael Olasoji, DG, State Campaign Council of AAC, Lagos State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So you just sit tight for a moment. Let's bring you up to speed with the feedback, if we can get all of our feedback. Just a moment. So basically, we did ask a question, Bukola, today, to the effect that can the coalition unseat Bola Tinubu in 2027?
And we have interesting feedback coming through from our viewers, and we're looking forward to reading them to you in just a moment. But we hear you, Idoko Aba. We hear you, Kismet. We hear you, Joseph Osumbo. And, of course, we're going to have a summary as well, right, Jeffrey?
Yes.
After it all, because we won't be able to take everyone's comments, but we're going to have a summary of the yeses and the no's that have come through on this question.
Let's take some of the comments by, let's say Idoko Abba says, yes, the coalition have a chance to defeat Tinubu if they can shield their personal interests and agree to work for the interest of the nation, if they can stop being the two-faced politicians, if they can stop nursing secret feelings for grumps that will fall off from the APC table. Crumbs, I guess you wanted to say. It is possible to unseat the president. Bukola, you have the next one.
And it's from Kismet, who says, yes, the coalition can unseat the present government if and only if the electoral umpire plays by its rules. The security apparatus carries out their assignment without bias, and the politicians allow Nigerians to vote without interference. He puts in parentheses, vote buying. Then it can happen easily. Quite a lot of hurdles that you have outlined.
Okay, let's hear from Joseph Osumbo. Long one, let me see how much I can take. The answer to the question is yes, just for a singular fact that the people are tired and fed up with the policies and all the, in your word, deceits of the present administration. When individuals like you named a few people who are supposed to be image makers of the administration are backing out for reasons not far-fetched, then what will one expect from the populace? Tinubu has been a strategist, according to your analysts, will receive the greatest shock of his life. The defection to APC we're seeing now will later become defections abroad. When the time comes, I don't know what I mean. I don't know what you're baiting, but...
There's this one from WhatsApp, Jeffrey. Isaac is saying, the coalition cannot unseat the president. We have had enough of coalitions. No candidate can be trusted in Nigerian politics. What Obi said was the same thing PMB said in 2015. And how did it go? The coalition should support BAT and forget about this unprogressive movement. That's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for BAT. Yeah.
Oluwafemi David says, in as much as the coalition is to pick a southwestern, I guess, candidate, it may still become survival ladder for the incumbent. Otherwise, it will end up to a personal interest for coalitors to Nigerian voters, which is impossible impossible to stand to unseat the president. And
this is the last one from Kene Kenneth, who says the coalition would need to overcome personal interests and forge a united, inclusive, and credible platform to defeat Tinubu in 2027. And everyone is right as far as their perspective is concerned.
No, and that's why that's the beauty of democracy. I believe there are people that should support the president. There are people that should oppose the president. There are people that will be in between. It's the beauty of democracy, and everybody has a valid position. It's just for you to galvanize your own interests to become the majority and win the day. else you become the minority and just have your say.
Well,
right?
and it's important to keep the peace amid the beauty of democracy,
Yes.
because there are myriad of views in a democracy, and sometimes it can be problematic. But the maturity that is needed to shape all of those views, it's what is important.
I don't know. Do we have a summary of the yeses and nos? Oh dear, we do not have it. We usually have the summary to know how many people said yes and no.
And
maybe
how many no's we have.
We'll get the details much later, maybe tomorrow. But that's it on the program. I want to thank you for your time and, of course, your usual company. I'm Jeffrey Uzon. Sunrise Daily is up next. Mark Bayana. People are ready for us in just a few moments from now.
So stay with Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye for now.